Thrive Tribe. Welcome back to Warrior Voices. I am super thrilled to have a special guest today. Her name is Ronda. She is an author, but most importantly, she's a dear friend of mine. I have known Ronda for several years, and I thought I knew her until
Mhm.
I read her book. And she took me on such a deep journey of multiple traumas to this beautiful healing journey that she's on right now. And she just came out with this book called Breaking Free. I Was Made for More. And I'm looking forward to sharing her story with you guys and how she even got to the point in her life, especially after everything that she has gone through, to writing this book. So, welcome, Rhonda. Thank you so much for being a guest on this podcast.
Thank you for having me. I'm so excited to talk to you about this. I'm
I
here.
am too. So Rhonda and I met for lunch, and she brought me a copy of this book, which is available on Amazon. And I will make sure we put the link in there because everybody needs to get this book. It is incredible. And
Yeah.
when you go into talking about your trauma, but more importantly, like the healing parts of it, I've got all these little post-it notes because there's so many things that you say that are so incredibly relatable that anybody, no matter what they've gone through in life, can relate to. And even if they haven't been through trauma, they can relate. If they're looking to um, have a better life, if they want to find their power in life, if they want to make change in their life, there's so much in this book that will help with that. So I'm going to start off. I'm just going to read a little bit about on the back of the book so people have an idea of what this book is about
Okay.
before we dig into it. So the back says, I have lived in locked rooms in houses that were never homes. I have been beaten and silenced, used and abused, cherished and chosen. I have stood at the edge of a bridge, deciding if I wanted to live, and at the foot of a hospital bed, wishing I could die with the man I loved. And still, I survived. And that's all I'm going to give right now because there's just so much. But Rhonda, like, it is clear that you were born with it's almost like it was almost predetermined that you were going to have a life of hell. And looking at you now, you're absolutely beautiful inside and out, and you live a very fulfilling life. I'm so curious to how you went from this life of living hell to where you're at today. And I know part of this healing journey that you are on is about writing this book. So tell me how you got to this. What made you want to write the book to begin with?
Well, first, thank you for all the kind words. That
You're
means a lot
welcome.
coming from you because I know you're a mental health coach and it carries more weight. So thank you for that. Um how I got here, I sometimes don't know because to see my name on the front of a book is crazy. Like that's just crazy. The first time I saw that and it was printed as a book, I actually cried. I'm like, oh my, cried for so many reasons. So, but I think I was filling my life with so many other things. I was looking for it in connections with people, with wanting a relationship with a boyfriend or something. And none of it was working. So I just decided that I have to fill my time with something that's going to help me and not somebody else. So I didn't necessarily write this for other people to read. I wrote it for me to fill my time with something more meaningful than broken people. But in doing that, I always knew I had a story to tell. I just always knew it. It's been in the making for like 10 years. I would write down different things that someday I would include in a book. My biggest kind of hitch in writing a book was I didn't want to hurt my mom. I love my mom, but we had a very similar childhood. So I knew that whatever I was being raised in was a result or a reflection of what she knew. So I didn't want to hurt her. But then as I thought about it more and more, I thought how much more credibility it brings to the story if I could bring her into the story and she can read it, she can approve of it, she could say, yes, this happened, and it's not a made up story. So in the process of writing it, of course, I'd have conversations with her that I've never had in my entire life. Like, Mom, why did this happen? Where were we when this happened? So it was healing for both of us in ways. And I got to talk to my mom a little bit more about deep level stuff besides how was your day today? How's your shoulder feeling? It was deeper. It was more like, how are you inside? How are you feeling? So that was healing in a way too. Um, but then beyond that, I'm not a lot of people have said this is such a well-written book and it's so touching. Like, I don't feel like I'm not an English major. I'm not an author other than this book that I've authored from my story, but my editor helped me so much. She didn't just look for punctuation errors. She added depth to the story that I couldn't add on my own because I didn't dare go there. So an example is my first draft that I gave her was 80 pages. And this all came about because I posted online on my Facebook that I'm writing a book. I wrote a little prologue and she reached out to me because she knew me through the area that we lived in and said, Rhonda, I feel like this is my mission to help you with this book. And I was very grateful because how do you write a book when you don't have an English major? She does. She has all of that. So, the first draft that I gave her was 80 pages long. My childhood, I only did in one chapter, and then other 9 chapters were about the rest of my life. She read that and she said, "Nope, nope, you have to dig in more into this. You have a whole book here with just your childhood, and we have to dig into that." And I said, "But I don't want to." Like, she really pushed me really hard. So I did, and every time I brought something back to her, she would say, "Well, what does this look like? What does this feel like? What were you smelling at the time?" You know, she just made me not only dig into, like, the actual feelings, but the experience, if that makes sense. So because of her, this is a readable story. So I just want to say that off the top of my head. Um, in one short little example, I wrote down because I was starting to learn that our words carry weight based on how we say them. So an example is Mike was sick and he kept being told that it was just reflux and that we needed a vacation. So that's what the hospital's doctors kept telling him. So I wrote in the book, for my 50th birthday, Mike surprised me with a trip to Aruba. And she took that one sentence, she looked at it and she said, this puts all the focus on you. We want the reader to feel the focus on Mike. So she changed it to Mike surprised me for my 50th birthday with a trip to Aruba. So then all of a sudden the focus is on him. So that was just interesting to me. And that's why a lot of it is readable because she would change either the order of the words or she made me put words in there that I didn't even want to say out loud. And but it's truth. So anyway, that's how it started. That's how it became, I think, a readable book, and I just really wanted to honor her through that.
So what did you say her name was that helped you
Kathy
out? Your Kathy.
Kathy Barr.
So
I don't know if you put the
thank
last.
you, Kathy, for helping Rhonda make this a reality because of your guys' partnership in this book. You guys are going to heal and inspire an endless amount of people. I mean, I read this book. It was a page turn for me. I don't normally read books. I'm a very busy person, so it's really hard for me to like slow down and grab a book and read it. But I wanted to really know your story before doing this podcast with you. And I didn't want to put it off any longer because you just launched this, recently. And so um, I'm so glad that she gave you the courage to dig deep. But tell us a little bit about that. So you said she wanted you to talk about things you weren't ready to talk about or you weren't going to talk about. She had you say words that you weren't comfortable with at first. So how did you dig deeper than you first intended?
Obviously it was through a lot of tears, and she just kept saying, Rhonda, just write it down and then we'll evaluate it. We'll see if it fits into the story. So that's what I did. started writing exactly what happened, how I felt, she would say, "Okay, like, what did the room look like?" Or, "What did you see?" Or, what did how did you process what you heard?" That kind of stuff. And in doing that, obviously, it was done in private with my own tears, with my own paper, not really expecting it to be read by as many people as what are reading it. Like, I didn't foresee this. So it
Mm,
was it was an internal process, if that answers your question.
it is. And with what you just said, that it's clear that you intended to write this book as a healing mechanism for yourself versus being an author. Like, it sounds to
Mhm.
me like your priority was to do something to help you on your healing journey versus your priority being an author. And I think
Right.
that really speaks volumes to this book because you do dig so deep. And I couldn't put the book down. I read it within 24 hours. I took
Wow.
the day off of work just because I'm like, I can't go to work. I can't focus. I have to read this book. I have to finish it.
That's awesome.
And then I called Rhonda and I'm like, listen, I need to do this podcast within the next 24 hours. Like, wow, this is so fresh on my heart. Like, let's talk about this book. So I just finished reading the book. Was it yesterday or the day before yesterday? And I'm like, we got to get you on the schedule. So I don't want to give the whole book away, but like
Okay.
you said, the back of the book tells a lot about your story. So give us, in your own words, some of what your story is about, when it started, and kind of where you're at right now.
Okay. So, raised in a very abusive home with a lot of different dads coming in and out of the house. Raised homeless, in the South, Alabama, Mississippi, Florida, not really having a place to call home, and not knowing any different than that either. But as I go through my childhood, go through preteen, teen years, seeing other homes that were different, and even before that, wanting more than what I had, not more things and um, not more of a house, more of a family, just wanting to feel chosen for something, I think, just wanting to feel love. So then deciding that I couldn't live like that anymore, and that was the breaking point, was I just can't do this. So moving out, and 3 months later, meeting the man that I ended up marrying, and was married to him for 30 years, and then he got sick and died, and losing my physical savior, my almost my earthly savior. And then the journey, and I'm gonna it's gonna be an emotional podcast because I'm gonna wanna
Okay.
cry.
Because this is real life.
Right.
This is real life. This is not just a book. It is real life. You lived this story. So please, it's okay to get emotional.
Yeah. So then my journey from losing that and trying to find myself again, and that's all in there. Even the last 6 years, yesterday was the 6-year anniversary of him dying. Um, Losing my identity and who I thought I was, and trying to find out who I am without abuse, without someone loving me just like loving myself. And I have to say I'm still on that journey. I don't have all the answers. I'm still Yesterday was a tough day, every day is a tough day in ways, but I still choose joy. I still try to find out some way what brings me joy. So that's the synopsis of the book.
Mm. Well, I commend you so much. The part that you struggled with writing this book because of your mom. And please correct me anytime I'm wrong, or if
Okay.
I'm only coming from my view of reading the book. But I think it's safe to say that your mom was one of your abusers. And yet you had so much compassion for her now that you considered her feelings prior to writing this book. And I love that you guys had this opportunity later in life to have some of those deeper talks. and
Mhm.
really get to know your mom on a deeper level, because I feel that even with the people that hurt us, if we can find any way of having compassion for them, hurt people
Mhm.
mostly, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
But I'm sure as a child, you're not thinking, well, my mom is doing this because of what she went through. And I think it's also really important to know that your mom, this is some of this is in the book, but she went through just heartbreaking, unspeakable abuse herself.
Yeah.
And abuse that she couldn't escape because I don't want to give the book away. She couldn't escape because she had proof of that abuse for many years to come. And I
Mhm.
guess you'll have to read the book if you want to know what I mean. But
Yep.
literally, can you imagine? She never really could escape what she went
Mhm.
through because there was that thing in her life that was a daily reminder
Mhm.
of the most unspeakable things that has happened to her.
Yep.
So knowing that, you can have compassion, but I know you mentioned this in your book, it still doesn't excuse behavior. But back then, the culture was we don't speak about what happens in the household. We don't get counseling. What happens in the family stays in the family. These are all old rules
Yep.
that we were that they grew up knowing, that even grew up knowing for a little bit. Things just started to change. Like today is World Mental Health Day. So a great day to be doing this because this book
Oh,
is really all
yeah.
about mental health.
Yeah. Right.
And yeah. And so I feel it's so important to note that if you're going through some trauma or you're looking to break a cycle, the most important thing you can do is get help
Agreed.
and reach, talk about your story, get counseling, get a coach, get all the resources you can. Um, because if you don't unlearn the behavior, you're going to spill that out onto people that didn't hurt you.
Right.
So your pain will then cause pain on people around you.
Right. And
So,
I will say that I sought a lot of counsel once I was in a committed relationship with my husband. It was apparent that I wasn't healed, so I sought through the years all kinds of different counselors, and my mom never had that opportunity because of poverty and because of the day and age that she lived in. So there is a difference there, and just actually acknowledging and recognizing that you can't do this on your own. So
yeah.
absolutely.
So you talk a lot about, well, there's a total of 5 children, right? You're one of
Mhm.
5.
Yep.
And so you have siblings. You mentioned there was multiple men that came in and out of your life. What has it been like for them, to read this book or to know about this book? Because they're all mentioned in here. That was just another remarkable thing that I walked away with, is that the unspeakable things that happened to you by so many people, you still spoke about them with such grace and not anger
Mhm.
and not bitterness. That, again, that speaks volumes about where you're at in your healing journey, because that takes a lot of guts and a lot of grit to talk about what you talk about with such grace. And so I'm curious of, are they supportive of this book?
So I have one sibling that is not alive anymore. I have a sibling that is not um maybe as capable of understanding it all. I don't know. I have another sibling that I haven't talked to and that all talks about in the book. But my sister was the hardest one because she also went through living hell and didn't come through it unscathed, and she did not do very well with the book, and she actually threatened suicide, if I was gonna publish the book, and I think I worked through that with her and tried to talk to her about how positively I tried to reflect on her life, but again, it's my story as I see it, whoever is involved. So, they might not want it to be told, but it's a public record as well. So, I would say not so great, but okay, if that answers.
You know, no, it's a great answer for that. And I think that it's important to note that what you went through is your story.
Mhm.
And you have every right to do what you want with your story.
Thank you.
I know I noted this in the book that we're going to dig deeper into, but you have a choice to do what you want with the trauma.
Mhm.
And you chose to grow from it, and you chose to break the cycle, and you chose a path of healing, and this book being part of that, and you have every right. And it may not make everybody comfortable, but that should not block you from doing it. To me, they just don't understand that way of healing.
Right.
And just because they don't understand it, they can't support it, doesn't mean you shouldn't do it. But I love
Right.
the fact that you did take in consideration their feelings. You had a talk with her, and it's, my heart hurts that she would be that upset over reading the book, because when I read the book, she was she's an amazing sister
Mhm.
that you together, because you were the only two girls,
Right.
you guys were partners, and you had to lean on each other through some of this abuse that you guys went through together, and that you spoke of her in such a genuine, authentic way. And I could feel the love that you have for her. And even when things were difficult with her or with you, you still loved her so deeply, and you had compassion for her and understood what she went through, because you guys shared a room. Like, talks about locked doors, right? I read that at the beginning. Um, she was the other prisoner behind that locked door,
Yep.
right?
Yep. Exactly.
And
Both
so,
physically and mentally, emotionally, everything. Like,
yeah, but healing can be scary, right?
mhm.
Can you agree that healing can be scary? And when she's mentioned the book, she may have been looking at it like, okay, my story's going to be out there.
Mhm.
And maybe she's not ready to heal
Mhm.
where you're at, right? So that could be in just some of her fear.
Right.
But what, I guess, what made you still move forward with writing the book, even with her threat of suicide or disappointing your mom? Was it just the conversations, or was there anything in particular that you're like, I'm still going to do this?
So in the conversations with my mom, I got kind of the blessing from my mom, which was a huge hurdle for me. I think I still would have published it even without that, only because I think I recognize that she wasn't at the same point in her life as I am emotionally or healing wise or whatever. But getting that blessing of saying, she said, "That's exactly your story is exactly my story." And I said, "So are you okay with me sharing this?" And she said, "Yes." So that was a good thing. When the conversations with my sister turned towards what she was saying, I actually went to my mom and said, "Can you help with this? Like, I don't know what to do. I don't want anybody to hurt themselves over a book that I've written. Certainly not a family member, someone I love." And so she took care of it. So whatever she did, whatever she said to my sister Deb actually texted me back and apologized and said, she still loved me. So then I kind of got the blessing from her too, but it took a pretty rough day of what am I doing? Who am I going to hurt by this? Because obviously I don't want to hurt anybody. This is not to bring shame to anybody. Anything that I say in there, like I said before, is a public record. It was for me. And it's interesting because I thought I was at some points I thought I was writing it for other people as well. Like if other people are going through this, maybe they'll find healing, maybe they'll realize they're not alone. But now that it's out and people are coming to me and sharing their stories, then all of a sudden I don't feel so alone. And I feel like maybe I did write this so that because nobody knew this about me. Nobody. Like
I know I didn't. Yeah,
Mike
I didn't
knew
know any of
a
it.
majority of it. He didn't know everything. My kids knew little snippets of it, but in writing it, I had to share it with them so that they wouldn't read it in a book. So this is all very recent for it to come out. So all the years that I felt alone, like this must just be because of my family. This is just because of poverty. This is because, of lacking things. It's not. Rich people go through this. Presidents go through this kind of stuff, and maybe not poverty and homelessness, but I think the world is so broken. People are broken, like, and if we don't speak it, we can't bring it to light. So that's the purpose that I have now. I was just texting a friend of mine and they wrote back, "We need to enter our own darkness to be healed from it." And that hit me pretty hard because I really did have to go back into the darkest part of my life in order to feel like there's hope. So,
Mm, that that's really deep, and I can't agree with your friend any more than I do, because we often run from that darkness
we
because,
do.
well, you lived it,
Mhm.
right? Like,
Mhm.
why would you wanna go back to that scary, dark place?
And why talk about it? Because I wanna forget it.
Yeah, so answer that. Why talk about it and not just forget it? I'm asking you.
I think for healing. I think to
Mhm.
let other people know that they're not alone. I think when you speak it, it loses its power. If you Yeah, I just think if you speak of rape, if you speak of incest, if you speak of that kind of stuff, it loses its power of the shame that it has on you because all of a sudden there's light on it. And I think shame is darkness. So,
Mm, yeah, for the trauma survivor program, that is my goal, is to get survivors such as yourself to talk about it. But with that, they have to revisit their darkness.
yeah.
So, what would your advice be to them? Um, this is going to be a two-part question. And how has talking out about it helped your healing?
Okay, so I could say talking about it has helped my healing because it's helped me realize I'm not alone, that it's
Mhm.
not just my little family, my little section of town that this happened in. This happens all over the place. So I think when we realize that we're not alone, that brings some healing. Not that it makes it right, not that it makes it more acceptable, but the loneliness factor of going through abuse is one of the darkest parts of it, I think. So if you can speak about it, other people start to say, "Well, this happened to me," and it just brings communication. It brings um, relationships. So, what was the first part of the question? What did I do?
What would you say to trauma survivors that are hesitant to talk about their story?
I think you have to get used to admitting it first. I think that's got to be the first step. Like, this happened. This isn't right. I think you have to see it for what it is. And then I think you have to speak about it, whether it's with a trusted friend, whether it's, you know, even writing it down where you're just sharing it with yourself. There's got to be levels to this. It's not just you go out and, go to a restaurant somewhere and tell your waiter, guess what happened to me?
Right, right.
There's levels to it. And I think the very first level is recognizing it, that it's wrong.
Yeah. And I think even before recognizing comes that choice of choosing you, right? Knowing
Yes.
that you matter, your story matters, and
Yes.
figuring out how do I communicate this in a healing way.
Hmm.
So my goal is when people are telling their stories, they're doing it in a warrior type way. They're doing it with their turning their pain into purpose.
Hmm.
They're doing it to help heal themselves first, And then in doing so, they're healing other people. It's a difference from sharing your story as a victim and not really wanting to heal, just more or less needing people to um, feel sorry for you, to, and all of that will keep you in that dark place. Telling your story with the purpose of healing, you revisit that place, but you don't stay there. It helps you remove yourself from there and then
Right.
not have to. I think we will always revisit those dark times in our life. And so we literally go back there and heal from it. You have to feel it to heal it.
Yes.
Avoiding it, it will not go away,
Right.
right? So the easiest way to heal really is to start talking about it.
Mhm.
But the hardest thing to do is making the
It's so
choice
hard.
to talk about it,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah.
Okay. So I want to dig into this to this book. Like
Okay.
again, you escaped, I want to say you escaped your abusive, well, it wasn't really a home, but your abusive childhood at 17. So you weren't even through high school. That had to been so scary, but we usually don't change until the pain of what we're going through, it's larger than the pain of not knowing,
Exactly.
right?
Yep.
The unknown. So is that safe to say that's kind of where you were at? Like, okay, because I heard you say, I just can't do this anymore.
Yep. Yep.
And oh my gosh, the story that you told that led you to that day, girl, it's like, I cannot even imagine the pain, the humiliation, the the dirtiness, all the things that you went through that made you make that choice. But, I think most people know abuse just gets worse, right? And it
Mhm.
continues to get worse. And you don't have to wait until it's so bad. Just, and you talk about this in your book, just knowing that you were made for more,
Mhm.
right?
Right.
Means you don't have to wait for that rock bottom. You don't have to wait for the abuse to be so bad that you justify anything.
Right. Right.
You know, Making the choice to choose yourself is enough.
Mhm. Mhm.
Yeah. So what I want to do is I marked a lot of spots in this book that you talk about your mindset
Okay.
and your mindset of that helped you along your healing journey, but also helped you through some of the darkest days of your life. Things that most people watching this have never experienced. And so I just kind of want to take them into your mind a little bit
Okay.
and understand you and how you got out of that hell into the life that you're living right now. And I heard you say that you're still on that healing journey, but you know what? There's no destination. We're
Right.
always healing.
Yep.
And the important thing is to heal as you're going because life will life us to death. And although we may have healed from, say, your childhood trauma, things will still come up and take you back there. But life will happen, and clearly in this book you experience that. Where more devastating things happen in life, and if you're not healed from the prior stuff, it just adds on and it builds and it builds and it builds. And it's really being able to heal, well, one trauma at a time, you know?
Mhm.
So
One day at a time.
it's easier to, yeah, it's easier to weather the storms that life throws at us.
Yeah. Yep. Yep.
So this one it's funny because I've talked about this a lot. This reminds me of my daughter, which passed away,
Mhm.
that went through a lot of trauma herself. She was sexually abused from the age of 8 to 15. She was a child of an alcoholic. I was an active alcoholic from her ages of I think like 5 to 11 during those precious times of her life. I wasn't the mother at the time that could teach her self-love or any of that stuff, which then led her into, because of her unhealed trauma, um, it led her into more and more trauma, more abusive situations and relationships, which then ultimately led to her death. Um,
I'm so
but
sorry, Jamie.
thank you. She said something similar to this. So when I read this, I was like, oh my gosh, we got to talk about this. You said justice doesn't always come from a courtroom. Sometimes it comes from survival, from living a life that refuses to stay silent, from choosing to break generational chains instead of tightening them. Talk to me about that.
Yeah, how deep do I go with that? I think the greatest I've heard this before and now I've lived it, but the greatest victory that we can have is not in holding on to the wounds that were given to us. So it's not that we did them ourselves, but somebody harmed us. And it's so easy to want other people to pay the price for that. So whether it's through we want other people to punish them for it, and that's what the justice system is. And sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. So if we can just know in our hearts that we kinda did what we could and it didn't work, then that's where the healing of our own emotional being has to become priority and not the justice that didn't work. So
Right. Well, my daughter said when she was 15 and we were doing seminars, and her abuser was getting ready to be like sentenced. And someone in the audience had asked her if she felt like she was going to get her justice once he was sentenced. And at such a young age, her answer to that was no, that no justice system is going to give me that closure. She said, the only time I'm going to get my justice or closure is when I heal from within.
oh, that's awesome.
And yeah, I mean, at 15, and
15.
right, the power in that basically says that I'm not going to give anybody else the power to give me justice, because if they don't give it to me, I'm screwed. I'm
Right.
going to go the rest of my life feeling that my pain wasn't justified.
Mhm.
What an awful way to live. But when you say it's when I heal from within, well, the only way we can heal from within is doing the work ourselves. So you're completely taking all your power. And if you want to heal and you want to grow from the pain that somebody else put upon you, that's the way to do it, right? And so I love that you two are on the same page as that.
That's amazing to
Um,
realize that at 15. Like, how does so a lot of people have asked me, like, "How did you know at 4 that this wasn't right?" Or, "How did she know at 15 to say something like that?" Sometimes it's I think it's God-given. It's like an instinct. It's something different than what we can learn. So, that's
yeah.
amazing that she had that insight.
Yeah, and I hear you say a lot in your book that when you're talking back about your childhood, you talk about something and you would say, I didn't know what to name it at the time.
Mhm.
Like you didn't know what it was. It was a feeling you were having, but you couldn't name what it was.
Right.
And I feel that she she didn't have full understanding of what she said and the impact that it had. And my daughter, she was sassy, like she got it from me. But in the car ride home, I said, what you said was so incredibly powerful. And she's like, what? Like, what did I say? And I told it to her, I told her, I repeated it because it like hit me so
Yeah.
hard. Like I knew I was never going to forget that line. And I told her like the power behind that. And she looked at me and she's like, well, damn right I did. Like that or something. It was just so funny. But like I knew she had no idea, but she totally owned it when I'm like,
Yeah,
this is what you actually said.
that's awesome.
So it was incredible. She didn't know the impact, but I'm gonna
Special
read
girl.
this to you. because this is a note in your book, and you often do this. You're in your book, you'll have like a chapter, and then you will write straight to your readers, right? Like you'll have a feeling moment with them. And I think that's another reason why um, I got so much out of this book, is I was looking forward to hearing those things that you were just addressing straight to your readers. So I want everyone to listen to this so carefully because, again, you don't even have to go through trauma to learn from this book. This is something that you wrote, and it's fairly emotional. So I'm just going to take my time in reading it and feel the feels that go with it. But you said, "To the one who knows this pain, this silence, this shame, this stolen sense of innocence, of safety, this is for you. You are not alone. What happened to you was not your fault. And even if no one stood up for you back then, I am standing up with you now. I believe you. I see the strength it takes to survive what should never have happened. I see the courage it takes to keep breathing, to keep hoping, to keep healing. You may carry scars no one else can see, but those scars are not signs of weakness. They are proof that you are still here, still choosing life, still choosing to break the silence. You are not defined by what was done to you. You are defined by your resilience, your tenderness, your refusal to give up on love or on yourself. May you find peace in your own timing. May you speak your truth without fear. And may you know deep in your bones that healing is not only possible, it is your birthright." Let's talk about that. That was so powerful and speaks to so many that they are not alone. Like that's basically what you're saying here. And that I think it's important to know that the scars that a lot of us carry, people can't see,
Right.
right?
Right.
And that's why you feel so unheard or unseen.
Mhm. Mhm.
Because you said this earlier, before we started recording, people can't see your mental pain.
Right.
So talk to me about this. It made you emotional when I read it.
Yep.
How so?
So when I wrote this, obviously I'm writing it for anybody out there in the vast universe or whatever that might have gone through something that I know nothing about, that I might not ever know anything about. And my whole purpose for writing this book, not whole purpose, but a bunch of purposes, but one of them was if even one person feels more seen, feels less alone, feels validated, feels like there could be some healing coming from this. If even one person felt that way, then it was worth it. It was worth all the tears that I cried while writing it. It was worth living it, basically, in a way. And that happened. So someone reached out to me, and this is what gets me emotional about that section, is because she said directly, and I had never told her this. She said, "What I've lived through is similar. I've never spoken about it. I want to be strong enough to share this. I want to share it with you at some point. So we're going to have coffee or lunch." She didn't tell me everything, but she said, "If you wrote this for one person, that one person is me." And I sobbed because that was, and I'm hearing that a lot. So the tears that I'm feeling is not for what I've lived through. It's for the people that are just resurfacing their own trauma and what that means for them. And that I get to share a part of that, or I get to be um, a little encouragement for them in that. That's what the tears are for. So, yeah.
Mm, I love that. And I love, that there's this God given opportunity to all trauma survivors that you have an option to not have gone through what they've gone through in vain, that you have the option to take what you went through, that pain, and turn it into purpose. And that purpose may very well just be that you are giving others the courage to face that darkness
Mhm.
so that they can start processing their own healing,
Right.
right? And you mentioned the hardest part about healing is it can get lonely. And when you said that you're standing up with them, that is so powerful to have just one person that you know sees you.
Mhm. Mhm.
And they don't even have to have all the answers.
Right.
In fact, they don't have any of our answers. We have our own, but just giving us the space to be able to process that in a safe space is so amazing. And I feel like that's kind of what this says here is that you have turned your pain into purpose, and now you are a safe space for other trauma survivors. And I love that. I love you so much. I just love you so much.
Oh, you
You
Amy.
are amazing. I just you just truly whew. um okay, so here's another part that I have highlighted. I just want to take these one at a time and kind of dig deep
Yeah,
into them
great.
and why they stuck out to me as a trauma survivor coach. I'm an empowerment coach, but that means a lot of people, I'm giving them the empowerment to find their power to help them not live at the effect of their life,
And
right? Of
that's
the bad things
amazing
that
work.
thank you.
That's
Thank you.
amazing work.
Okay, so you were talking about abuse,
Mhm.
okay, that you have gone through.
Mhm.
And this made me think it is also Domestic Violence Awareness Month. And so I've got a lot of experience myself with domestic violence. My daughter went through horrific domestic violence. And I feel that a lot of people that are in domestic violence relationships go through this. And I want to set the record straight. And someone that has gotten out of domestic violence yourself, I'm hoping will give us a deeper answer to what you said here. So you said, even in those fleeting moments of joy and lightness, there was confusion. We didn't know how to hold them. We didn't trust them. Those moments felt borrowed from someone else's life. Those rare moments didn't erase the cruelty, but they blurred it, made it harder to name, harder to separate love from harm. And when I read that, I thought about these men and women that are in a domestic violence relationship. And they hold on to those moments where they felt loved, where there was laughing. Maybe they had a special date, or maybe their abuser told them they were beautiful and how much they were so loved.
Mhm.
And we hold on to those because we feel like, well, why can't they just be like that all the time? Like, I know they can do it because I've seen them do it.
Mhm.
So that's what it said to me when you said holding on to those fleeting moments. And moments felt borrowed from someone else's life. They're so rare and far and few between, but yet, as a survivor or as a victim at the time, we hold on to those as if they hold more weight than the abuse.
Mhm.
So, having gone through this unspeakable abuse that you've gone through, tell me what that was like when you had those fleeting moments and how you could distinguish the difference between the love and the harm, even when it was blurry.
So in that part of the book, I'm referring to childhood abuse. So as a child, you don't have any other options. At that time, there wasn't CPS, at least not that I knew of. I think at one time I tried to tell a leader in the church and the school, and it just brought more harm on us as kids because then our parents, then threatened us with our lives. So there's not much of an option. What I was referring to in that part was there were still good times. There was still a time my mom came into my room wanting to teach me how to belly dance. Like, I'm like, "What?" Like, I didn't even know she did that in her past life, but she did, and she's pretty good at it. So, like this child side, obviously, I was a child. I wanted to feel something other than pain and neglect, all that kind of stuff. So you lean into that and you keep hoping for more. So that's the child side of it. Like, it's just blurry. There's good to these people, but there's more evil. And I say evil because it's not just a wrong choice. Sometimes I do believe like it's actual evil comes over people when it's violent. But as an adult, like I let it live out in my life after Mike passed away and I got back into a relationship was and it wasn't physical abuse, it was mental, it was manipulation, it was narcissism, but I wanted to fix him. Like there was enough good there that I thought I could keep in the relationship because I think we as humans want to fix people. And for me, the moment came was when I realized that I couldn't fix him. Like, and I think that happened with even my siblings and my mom at a time. Like, I'm not the fixer. I think we all want to be, and I tried to be with my brother when I took him into my house, but the moment came when I realized that. So I think that's a big point was we can't fix people. If you're being abused and there's some good things in there, you can't fix them. Like, they have to do that on their own. They have to heal on their own. And I think we have to heal, and we have to heal in order to be strong enough to recognize that. It's an
And you
internal.
definitely can't heal in the environment that hurt you,
Yes.
right?
Right.
So how did you come to the determination of I can't fix him now? Like, it's easy to say we can't fix other people, but how do we come to that decision or that realization that the good times
Aren't enough.
aren't enough?
I think, like you said a minute ago, we don't want to get to rock bottom before we make those decisions. But I think sometimes that's what it is. Like, you have to get to a point where I did it in my childhood. I did it in the situation where there's, I'm made for more than this. And it has to be a realization that we are made for more. Like, we are made for more than the pain that we endure. We're made for more than the abuse. We're made for more than manipulation. We're we're not made for any of that kind of stuff. So if it feels wrong, it's wrong. Plain and simple. Like, I don't know
No.
how else to answer that.
No, I think you answered it perfectly. I feel that even, when I was in a domestic violence situation and there was very few good times, but they were really good.
Mhm.
Part of me also felt like my brokenness was accepted because when you are in a toxic relationship, it's okay to be broken,
Mhm.
right?
Mhm. Mhm.
And so it was a fear of just even facing myself. And if I had an abuser, then it was him causing the pain versus having to put the spotlight on myself.
Right.
That's when change really happens, is when we do put the spotlight on ourselves. Even though the abuse is not our fault, um, not as a child, but as an adult, we are making a choice to stay.
Yeah. There's a choice.
And it is a choice. And even though, well, I'm getting ahead of myself because I know you discussed this here. We'll talk about it. But um, the next one is, well, this is what you call them in your book, freeing truth. This is like it's the truth that's going to set you free. You have all these little things in here, and I love them. And this is part of one of your freeing truths that you do after chapters. Um, so this is a couple of paragraphs I'm going to read. Stepping into the unknown is terrifying, but sometimes the pain of staying becomes greater than the fear of leaving. And that's kind of just what we were talking about, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
But again, we don't have to wait. till then. You have a part of you, and it might be very small, that is telling you, I'm made for more. It is telling you this is not right. We don't have to wait for the pain to be so big because sometimes we don't survive those. We lose people every day that are waiting for the next bigger abusive situation. Like it was just one black eye.
Right.
People have been beaten far worse than this, or at least he doesn't hit me.
Right.
That's another one.
Mhm.
Okay. That night didn't give me answers, but it gave me a choice. And I chose. I chose to believe I was worth more than what I have been given. I chose to imagine a future that hadn't been written yet. Not because I was ready, not because I knew how, but because I finally believed I didn't have to stay stuck. And maybe if you're reading this, you're at your own crossroads. Maybe you've been taught to stay small, to stay silent, but you get to choose too. The beginning of healing isn't always a leap. Sometimes it's the smallest of steps. It's a decision, a quiet one, a brave one, to choose yourself, to choose a life that feels like yours. And that just totally sums up what we're saying. Talk to me about how someone walks through those doors of the unknown, because here you say you chose yourself, but it wasn't because you were ready, because most of us are not. So
Right.
let's stop waiting until we're ready because it's never going to come until you make it so.
Right.
It wasn't because you knew how. It wasn't even, you had no idea where you were going to live. You had no idea how you were going to eat, where you were going to get your next meal when you made this choice. So, what was that quiet, brave decision that you made you walk into the unknown? Because I think it's important to also acknowledge for you and all trauma survivors that when you have gone through so much trauma or trauma for a long period of time, like you did, it was your entire childhood, that becomes your norm. It can also become your comfort zone. And even though it's painful, it's predictable.
It's safer
So
than
it feels safer than the unknown. So how did you leave um, that life with all the unknowns facing you? Especially I want to know, you were only 17.
Mhm. I think it boiled down to me for me, 2 choices. I was literally either gonna kill myself or I was gonna move out. There was no way I wanted to stay in that family, there was no way I wanted my life to have the same trajectory as everybody else in the family. Um, I had dreams, I wanted to be married, I wanted to have kids, I wanted to raise a family that I felt in love, but before that, I wanted a high school education. Nobody in my family had ever gotten a high school education. So, maybe and I didn't wanna die, but that was my choice, either die or choose something else, and I really considered the ways of dying, and they all sounded awful, and my sister had tried that and ended up with the brain of, like, an 8-year-old. She ended up as an infant for 6 months first, um, and I didn't wanna go through any of that. I didn't want my family taking care of me if that happened to me, if I didn't succeed. I didn't wanna hurt, I didn't want it to hurt anybody else, but I also knew that if I chose to move out, that I would be hurting my family. So it was kind of like a no-win situation, and I chose the lesser of 2 evils, if you'll have it. I chose that I wanted more, and even if it didn't work out, I had to at least make a choice, and I had to try. So it wasn't some big dream that I was because a girl like that, how can you dream? Um, I don't know. It was hard. That's still, I would say, the second hardest decision of my life ever, the first being the death of my husband.
Yeah.
But I think it's choosing yourself over your circumstances.
It saddens me. I mean, I love it for you. I think what saddens me, and now I'm going to get emotional, is that that's the choice my daughter could never make. She could never make that choice for herself to put her healing as a priority. And that led her into addiction, and then that led her into her death. And so these decisions that they're terrifying,
They are.
but they very much can be life and death. And you are a product of life in making that choice, and my daughter is a product of death
I'm
by
sorry.
not making that choice. I just it's Thank you, but I just want to make that, like, that is just raw, but that is the reality of it, folks, is that those choices, although terrifying, are a must.
You
And
have to choose yourself. I think you have to choose yourself over anybody else. Like, I had to choose myself over almost over God, over my church that taught me that you have to be obedient, you have to be submissive. I knew in moving out that I was gonna lose my church, I was gonna lose my school, I was gonna lose the car I paid for, all my belongings, which I didn't have much at all. You have to choose yourself over everything else, and that's the only kind of encouragement I can give is you're s if you don't take care of yourself, you can't take care of anybody else. You can't love anybody else. You can't make a difference for anybody else. So, yeah,
mm,
it's tough though.
yeah, and I want to note too, just to bring a little context to where you were at in your life at this time when you made such hard choices like this, is that you were at this church school that was very teeny tiny, and it was like, when I'm reading this, it was almost cult like, right? And the way they were teaching was not compassion and love, and it was is very much about power and control. That
Obedience,
you were surrounded by all the other children, which was not many. I think you said there was like 50 people in this entire school from kindergarten to 12th grade. Like, it was tiny. All of them, to be fair, were going through the same teachings you were.
yeah,
You had literally no idea what a better life looked like,
right.
because in normal situations, we're in schools that where there's hundreds, if not thousands of people. And we can see, you know, Tammy, she's got all of the bestest clothes, and she's got cash on her all the time, and she's in all the sports. And then you've got Brian that comes in, and he shows up every day, he's happy, but he's got smelly clothes and holes in his shoes. Like, you can see all the different, even though we can't name it. Like, as kids, we don't look at it and go, "Oh, they're living a great life," or "They're living," but you know what I mean? You had nothing to compare it to.
Right.
You didn't get the opportunity to see this better life that is out there, to even know it existed, but yet you left.
Mhm.
That is freaking incredible to me. And I feel that when we're so deep in trauma, we may realistically, mentally know that life can be better than this, but mentally, we don't see. We don't see it. We don't see the options. We are so convinced that this is it for us, that life can't possibly get better,
And that's where
right?
generational cycles come in because you can't get out of it.
Yeah. But even so, like, with losses like you and I have had,
Mhm. Mhm.
um, the loss of your person, the loss of your child, when you're so ingrained into your grief, we too can think life is never going to get better.
Right. Right.
I can't live past this,
Right.
right? What we tell ourselves is our truth. But you again made that choice. Like, I love you went on this wild chase, right? I like, again, gotta read the book to know, but she just she got in her Jeep and she just went for a ride. And it wasn't just down the block. She went on a wild chase. And God, I commend you. But again, you were looking for something you didn't even know if it existed or not.
Right, right.
So I feel that, yeah, we could learn so much from you with that is
Thank you.
taking just you're welcome. But just to know that there's got to be something better,
Mhm,
even if
mhm,
I don't see it right now, and taking that risk because it
mhm.
is out there. It is out there. Okay, so next I have highlighted it says, I had escaped one life, but I hadn't built a new one yet. And that in between place where I was no longer in danger, but still not at peace was lonelier than I expected. And I love this because I talk to my clients about this almost with every client. Because when clients come to me, they want change. They don't even have to have gone through a trauma. It could be a stay-at-home mom that has spent the last 20 years being a mother, and now all of a sudden she's an empty nester. And who am I? You know what? Where am I going to go with my life? Who do I want to be? And when working on that, getting them to that next stage is terrifying
Mhm.
because you're good at what you do. You've done it your whole life. And I even mean that as a survivor. You become good at surviving.
Right.
You knew how to not test the waters. You
Mhm,
knew how to not you even said it yourself, to be the good girl.
mhm, mhm.
You chose to be the good girl, right? So that's what we know. But when we're going to um, elevate our life to the next level, that's a very scary place. So
It's
talk
so
to me
scary.
about that. Yeah. How did you get through that?
I think for me, it literally was one day at a time. And for me, I kinda got on this kick of how can I find some joy today? What's one thing I can do that would bring me because your life is so heavy and it feels overwhelming. It feels like there's no other way out of this. Like this is the way the rest of my life is gonna be. You know what you want your life to be. We all wanna feel at peace. We all wanna feel love, but when you're in grief and when you're in loneliness, whatever it is, for me, it was just making a simple choice every day. What can I do? Whether it's having lunch with a friend, going for a walk. For me, it turned into that's when I started playing sports. Like I picked up pickleball, I started line dancing, and those things were unexpectedly fun. Like somebody makes a crazy shot and everybody dies laughing. And so it's a brief moment of reprieve, but it's all of a sudden there was one day where I didn't cry at all, and then I didn't realize it till the next day. It's like, "Wait, I didn't cry yesterday," which then, of course, brought tears that day, but the moments of solid grief started to break a little bit. So it was a choice a day at a time. There was no great moment. There was no moment where I felt like I made it through. Some days I'm still there, like, it's not as dark as it used to be by any means, but it's still lonely, and I still have to choose every day. Yesterday, I did crazy things. Um it was the 6-year anniversary of Mike dying, and I tried to honor who he was, so I fixed a sprinkler head in my backyard. I went for a bike ride, I played some pickleball. It was just trying to and it's not trying to avoid because I still am a firm believer that we have to face our grief and we have to face our fears. It's not that, it's just trying to break it up, I guess. So it's one day at
Yeah.
a time.
I love that. And I love that you're bringing this up that it is not one big move.
Mm-mm.
It is not, I'm going to tell you to go and do X, Y, and Z, and you're going to, poof, it's be comfortable in this new life. It
Right.
doesn't work that way. It's all about the small moments. It's all about those little breaks that you give yourself. It's all about finding gratitude for the things that you do have.
Gratitude, yes.
Yeah,
That's a big one.
finding that putting that focus onto what you're grateful for having versus what you're losing,
Right.
We often focus on like what we're going to lose in this situation versus what we're going to gain.
Right.
But it's never, in my experience, I've never saw one person that went through growth, personal development or growth, that was like, ah, I made it. Like, never. It is like looking back and going, holy crap. Like,
Look where it was.
look where I was and how did I get here? And we can never put our finger on it
Yeah.
other than the part we never gave up. We never gave up on
Yeah.
ourselves. That's
Yeah.
the only thing I can put a finger on. But it is like, and I have clients where I'm like, I just smile and we often like we'll do catch ups like where I talk to them later, and just see how they're doing. And it's like, man, when we first started, you couldn't even answer a question. But now look at you. You're so vocal and you're verbalizing your pain and not just to me, but all over the internet. Like, how did you go and they don't even realize it. They're like, well, now that you say it that way, like they see the growth, right? So it is not some big aha
No.
moment. And I agree with you. It is making a daily choice of getting up and not living at the effect of your life, no matter what you're going through, doing something. And it could be choosing to do nothing because I am a busy person. I'm like, no, I'm going to choose to do nothing today,
Mhm. Mhm.
and that
It's
was putting
rest.
myself first.
Mhm. Yep.
It doesn't have to be anything glamorous. Mine is never glamorous. Mine is always messy.
Yep, mine too. Mhm.
It's not always about going out and actually doing something like getting your nails done or hair done. It could just be taking a walk,
Mhm.
you know?
I do remember, there was a moment where I decided to start living again after Mike died, and I posted on Facebook, "Yes, I'm changing because to stay the same is to allow the death inside of me to consume my soul." Like, I remember posting that because I really felt like I am gonna start becoming a different person. I'm gonna become more active. And I think when you change, that scares the people that are closest to you, and sometimes you lose some friendships, and I was afraid of that, like, because I was a very introverted person. Mike and I always just seemed to be enough for each other, so we didn't have a lot of friends, we had some, but I knew that I needed to change to get out of that cycle, so um, I was afraid of losing connections. Unfortunately for me, that didn't happen, but I've heard that before, people that you have to be willing to really change and to get out of your situation. You have to be willing to risk some things in order to
Yeah.
do that.
I'll talk a little bit about my experience with that. Is, I'm a recovery. I've got 11 years in sobriety. So when I decided to get sober, I was told relentlessly that you're going to lose people in your life. You you got to get rid of wet faces and wet places, and that terrified me. One, my boyfriend at the time, we think we were together like 3 or 4 years. He was a drinker. You, not for me to say he was an alcoholic, but he was an alcoholic, and I wasn't ready to leave him. I was going through recovery. That was enough change for me. But also, my family drank a lot. I'm an extrovert, so I love going to parties and weddings and graduation parties, and all of them had drinking. And I made the choice that I'm not going to avoid those places. I'm just going to be so strong in my recovery that those things don't bother me. But lo and behold, I didn't lose anybody. But when I went to school to become a life coach, and they teach us through making us go through what we put our clients through, right? Like all the things, all the lessons learned. And when my mindset started shifting from being a victim, because I was a straight up victim, everything happened to me. I had no control, like just lived in that victim mentality. Well, when I changed my mindset and I started to learn to not live at the effect of my life, I then had that expectation for the people around me. And when they would call and want to go down Victimville Lane, I was like, so what are you going to do about it? And they're like, they didn't like that. The people that wanted to stay victims did not want to be around me because my healthy mental well-being was a
You
threat
changed.
to their Victimville,
Mhm.
right?
Right.
That's when I lost so many people,
Oh,
so many people. And even though it felt like a loss, I had one friend, I think, Jeanette, that survived all of that. She was always my first call, right? When I was in Victimville, and she let me live there. We lived there together. But when I changed my mindset, she's still there. She's still, today's her birthday, actually. And
happy birthday.
yeah, so the ones that are meant to be in your life forever will stay there, even when we're making those changes,
True.
right?
Yep.
And we can't fear those losses because they make room for the people that are supposed to be in your new chapter
Mhm.
that will help you thrive in
Mhm.
your next chapter.
True.
So if we look at loss differently, sometimes losses like that are a blessing.
Mhm.
They need to happen in order to make room for the next good thing to happen.
True.
So,
I agree.
gosh, if we could talk all day. Okay, I got some more. I got some more, but this is just really, really good stuff. This is why I like couldn't sleep. It was like the night before Christmas, knowing this day was coming. I couldn't wait to have this conversation. Okay, so this says that undid something in me I didn't know needed healing. Survival I know how to do. Receiving I had to learn. That meant I had to unlearn shame. I had to unlearn silence. I had to unlearn the lie that said I was only as valuable as what I give. Talk to me about that. That undid something in me I didn't know needed healing. You knew how to survive, but you didn't know how to receive. Talk to me about that.
Um, so that was instigated by my editor who always asked me questions. She's like, "So you never knew love. How did you learn to recognize it, or how did you learn to accept it when you weren't given that?" And that was such a deep question for me, and it's still maybe one that I don't completely have the answer for. Like, I don't know the answer to some things. Like, I don't know how I knew the difference between right and wrong when all I had seen was wrong. I don't know how I knew there must be a doctor out there when I had never seen a doctor. Like, and I don't know how I recognized love without ever seeing it, but I did. And if I was more psychologically inclined like you are, I could probably dive deeper into that, but I haven't. I just accepted it. Like, this is good, this is bad, I want the good. But unlearning the shame, I think, was a slow process, and that's a process of talking. Like, Mike was really good at just listening to what I felt shameful about and just reassuring me that that's not the current situation. So I have a friend now who says something a lot that I think Mike would say to me then, but not in the same words, but she would always say, "You're safe. No matter what you're going through, you're safe right now." I mean, that's not everybody's situation if they're in a harmful, hurtful situation, but I think that's what he gave me, was he gave me safety. So in that process, I could unlearn shame just through that simplicity.
And when you say he gave you that safety, it goes far deeper than he just didn't abuse you.
Right.
I feel, and correct me if I'm wrong, I feel like when you say he gave me that safety, it wasn't that he didn't hit you, he allowed you to express yourself fully without being masked and it not ending in judgment.
See? You're so good at the psychological part. But that's
But really,
exactly
like
it. Like,
that,
if there's a safe space for you to be able to speak your fears or your shame or whatever it is, again, it brings light to it and that loses its power and its safety.
Exactly. And when you are with someone or in a place where you can safely speak about shame or guilt that you carry, and it's met with compassion and not judgment, then you start to accept and heal from it, right? But you got to
Mhm.
talk about it first. And we often hide talking about it because
Yeah,
we don't see or recognize that safe space
right.
and where we can.
Yeah, mm, agreed.
So he was amazing. And when I was reading it, no, he sounds a lot like Troy. And I say to people, you need to find your Troy because it is things like that. It's just a gift that was given to both of us. And it's out there. It's out there for anyone. We all have that deep need for love or for something more. But it's really hard to go after if it's covered up with low self-worth,
Right,
low self-esteem.
right.
It's hard to, feel like we're worthy of it. So when we heal, we have to heal first
Mhm,
in order to find that kind of love that you and I have experienced.
right.
Because those type of people will never find you if you're not available for them. I don't know if that makes sense.
It does
Going
perfect
back to like
perfect sense.
changing, we lose people because they no longer have a place in our life when we change, right?
Yep.
Well, this happiness, this person, my Troy was on a different level in life.
Mhm.
He had never found me down in Victimville,
Right, right.
right? So once I got out of that, I I surrounded myself with people. Some people believe in that. Oh, what do you call it? Where whatever you put out into the world, you get back, right?
Karma
That attraction, the power of that, and
or
I really
manifestation.
feel yes, yes. So another good reason why if you're going to lose people, that's okay because that means you're getting yourself in a position to where you're going to find people that will bring value into your life.
Right.
And I think it's safe for both of us to say that when you first got with Mike, well, actually, I want to ask you about this. Because when I first got with Troy, I was well on my way to healing. I knew I was worthy. I had self worth. I looked back at my past and go, who the hell was that girl that put up with that? Like, I laughed. Like, people are like, you did what? Like, yeah, you put up with what? They can't even picture it right now. I can't even picture it, but I did it. I put up with a lot. How did you trust his intention? Like, how did you trust that safe space? Because you were never given that. How did you not push him away waiting for the ball to drop? Because I know you talk about it, but
Mhm. So I
tell me
did
about
try to
that.
push him away. Like
Mm,
it was a blind date, first of all. I agreed to go on it and I'm not sure why. I wasn't looking for a boyfriend at the time. I was wanting to finish my high school diploma and it was the summer between my junior year and my senior year. And um I was kind of begged to go on this blind date from a friend, and I declined, I declined, and I finally agreed to yes, just because she talked me into it, and it was him, and I could see right away that he was a good guy. I thought way too good for me. Um, so I kept trying to push him away by saying, "You won't want me when you know what I've been through. I don't even live at home." Like it was it was pretty bad, but he just kept showing up. So it wasn't again, it wasn't a moment, it was a continuous demonstration of who he was that allowed me to trust him. It wasn't
mm.
it wasn't a single one, it was a bunch of them.
I love that. I think that's important
Mhm.
to know too, in that um, if we're not healed, and we keep saying, I always end up with the bad ones, part of it could be because we're pushing away the good ones
Right, right.
because they make us feel small.
Mm.
In all my past relationships, I love bombed people. Like I'd give them the shirt off my back. I always tried to make them feel special and loved and worthy and did all of these things and was constantly in that I have to prove my love and by doing all of these things. And then Troy came along and he consistently just showed up. And I remember that was the first thing I fell in love with him about is he made me a priority. No
Okay.
matter what, I didn't even have to ask.
Yeah.
He wanted to see me.
Yeah.
He he missed me kind of thing. He made me a priority. And so um there was even me like well into my healing journey and knowing I was worthy, it was the first time I faced healthy love. And I would get in my head and want to push him away. Luckily, I knew what I was doing. So it was kind of like, these little voices chirping and going back and forth of like, you're not good enough for him. You can't love him, enough. Just all the things, but going, oh, hell no. I've
Mhm.
done enough work. I
Mhm.
deserve this
Right,
and I'm
right,
not going to put it away.
right.
So, good stuff. Because I think we
Yeah.
often do that. And it just talks to the importance of healing after a toxic relationship. Otherwise, to break that cycle of going in from one relationship to the next, that is toxic. You
Yes,
want different, you have to be different, and you have to
exactly.
make different choices.
Yep.
Um, so this is talking about your incident at the laundromat.
Okay.
And it says, um, you were thinking of how easy it would have been to let your history excuse my actions. We had both been burned, but he let the fire define him. I chose to walk out of it. So I love how you said you didn't let your history excuse your actions. That is so freaking empowering. It is so easy to let our history excuse it, justify it, any of that. And when you said he let the fire define him, you were speaking of your brother
Yep.
and you chose to walk out of it. And I think what's so important here is that, and I know you and I talked about this off the record. We talked about um, how two people can grow up in the same family and have very different outcomes. So it is no longer a valid excuse to say, well, I grew up with an alcoholic. I grew up with a mother that didn't know how to love because of the life she had been through. That is no long that you can tell yourself those things, but it is certainly not going to do you any favors. That complete thought process will keep you in that pain because if you can justify it, why change it?
Right, right.
Right. So tell me how you, out of all your siblings, you were the only one who walked away, and it wasn't walked away unscathed, but you were able to escape it fully as you didn't let it define who you were.
Okay, so first off, that was the hardest part of my life to put in this book because everything else was done to me or happened to me but this was something that I chose and I tried to justify. So I was ashamed of this my whole life. Mike never even knew this. He knows now because he's dead and he knows my inner thoughts or whatever. And he's seen me write the book. But I never told my kids. I never told anything. So this was the thing that I was the most ashamed of. But at the time, I justified it. We didn't have any food. It was hard for me, being in sports and going out to McDonald's afterwards and everybody's grabbing a burger and I didn't even have a dollar. So, $5 on the floor, great. I've got food for a couple weeks for these games that we would go to. but then it turned into more, and I kept justifying it, "Well, this is what was done to me." But then I got convicted, and I think that was a God thing. I think he has at times in my life protected me. I think he's, maybe given me some extra insight. I don't know. I don't know how any of that happens, but I was extremely convicted to the point of what I now know as a panic attack, which that was the only time in my life I've ever had a panic attack. But I couldn't breathe. I knew that I had to tell somebody. So I told the principal of the school who was at our camp that we were at where this conviction happened. And then he told the laundromat owner, who then told my parents. And then I got in all kinds of trouble for it. But making that decision to come clean with something that I tried to justify, and I didn't realize it at the time, but I realize it now, that when you when you realize that you have a choice and your choice can either be right or wrong, and it's a choice based on not necessarily your environment, but on what's right and wrong, that gives you a lot of freedom. And so then I compare it to my brother who, in the book, I talk about the abuse that happened in our life, and part of that was sexual abuse. And my brother ended up being convicted of child abuse to other children. Sorry, it's going to make me tear up too. And at 18, he was sentenced to 35 to 50 years in prison. And when I went to see him in prison, I had a baby at the time. I had moved out, I'd gotten married, I had a baby, heard about all of this. So I go to visit him and I bring my 6-month-old baby with me. They have to do a full body search of her as well. So they take her diaper off and, check every crevice, and which was traumatizing. But sitting across from him in the prison, I'm trying to get across to the point that he had a choice. It was a wrong choice. And not being preachy or anything, but just almost trying to get at why he did it, and he blamed it on our upbringing, that he did that because he didn't know better, and that how could he not do it because it was done to him, and that was the only thing he knew, so he totally passed the blame onto someone else. And my point in putting that story in the book was there was a point where I did something wrong myself. None of us are beyond doing wrong, we're all capable of sin and wrong, but I realized that I had the choice in that, and I didn't necessarily need to blame it on my upbringing. It was my sin, my wrong. So that was the point in that, that you don't have to let your circumstances define your wrongdoing. They're your wrongdoing, and if you make the choice to not do them, your life will hopefully be better for it. So,
What I call that is accountability.
yes.
And I, you know, real accountability. Not, I'm sorry.
Mhm.
It is taking full responsibility for your choices and the consequences that come with those choices. And I always say accountability is your superpower. And when you can have full accountability, it it gives you the opposite results that you think it's going to. Like, yes, when you took full accountability, you went home and some very dark, terrible things happened. You didn't get your phone taken away for a week. You didn't get grounded to your room for a week. You knew what that punishment was going to be. And it's things that none of us, not none, but a lot of us have no idea or have had
Right.
to experience that stuff. But regardless of knowing of the harsh punishment that was going to come with that, you chose that. And that comes with a sense of freedom. It comes with you feel so empowered as a human being, and you also feel in control. And when people want their power back, I always tell them, let's start with accountability. Well,
Mhm.
that doesn't make sense. Like going back and taking an inventory of my life and finding my fault in what has happened to me doesn't make
Mhm.
sense. It sounds like it's the opposite. But would you not agree how freeing that was,
Absolutely.
even though you
Yeah.
had some harsh harsh consequences, but when you put it in perspective like you did,
Mhm.
that when you're sitting there with your brother in the prison and you both grew up under the same roof with the same parents and you went through the same things, the difference that your life had and his, and I really think that's where it boils down to, was your early discovery of what accountability is and owning your truth,
Mhm.
the good and the bad,
Mhm.
and his lack of
Mhm.
accountability.
Right.
Because as long as we can blame other people and it's not our fault, then we don't have to change.
Right.
But that means you back into everyone around you has to change. And that's not gonna happen. It's not gonna happen, right?
Right.
And the sad thing is someone like that would be like a repeat offender because as long as they're blaming other people, they don't see what they did as wrong. It was
Right.
excused behavior.
Right.
So I'm so glad. Like again, when I was reading this, I'm like highlighting. I wanted to highlight a bunch more, but I knew this would be like a 2 day instead of a 2 hour type thing. So I got just a few more. Let's
Okay.
you know get through these, and then we'll sum it up. You are not weak for setting boundaries. You are not heartless for saying goodbye. You are not unloving for protecting your peace. And I highlighted this because when we start wanting change in our life, these are the most common things that people have a hard time with. Like all my clients go through this. And again, this doesn't have to be a trauma survivor. It could be that stay at home mom that now wants to know what's next for me
Mhm.
is um, how do you start setting boundaries when you never have? Uh, how do you say goodbye to sometimes we have to disassociate from family members? You know that all too well.
Mhm.
How do we do that without feeling hurtless? So talk to me about that because these are very things that you had to do to heal and become the person you are.
So again, everybody's situations is different, and I don't want to imply or assume that what I lived through is the worst of the worst because I've heard stories of people having to make tougher decisions. So having to set boundaries really came down for me what was important to me at the time. And for me, my peace, my safety, my journey on to healing was more important to me than someone else. And as much as that sounds selfish, it can't be because I can't imagine how you can get to wellness and having like me having a relationship with my mom now without having to go through that. You can't change things if things don't change. So
Mm,
boundaries was a result of not wanting to keep things status quo as they were. How do you not feel heartless? I felt heartless my whole life. Like I knew at the base of me, at the inner core of me, that it wasn't because I was heartless, even though I knew that that's what it was being perceived as. But you have to let people's opinions of you be their opinions. As someone has said, I don't remember who, but other people's opinions of you is none of your business, even if it's family. Like
mhm,
you have to protect your peace. You have to protect what's important, what God gave us. Like when I moved out, I felt like I was disobeying God, but at the base of me, I knew that God wasn't that narrow. So,
mm. But you were being taught that he was.
yes.
So you went outside of the box
Yep.
and you challenged everything you had known.
Mhm. Yep.
And sometimes we have to do that. And again, but it doesn't have to be big, elaborate changes. It's little changes every day that accumulate.
Yes. Yep.
And then you look back one day going, how did I do that? Like, do you ever look back at your life right now and go, how did I leave the house that day?
Yeah.
Like,
Oh, yeah. All the time.
yeah.
And so, but the way I look at it is I would not have my kids. Like if that was wrong, which I was told that I was sinning because I left my family. How can I have 3 beautiful children now, grandchildren, like, I think God blessed my decision to leave, even though I was told that it was wrong. So, yeah, I look back all the time and think I can't even imagine what my life would have been like if I didn't. I can only look back with gratefulness that somehow I was given the strength to do that.
Wow. Well, thank you for sharing that. I think that's we have to get comfortable with making other people uncomfortable so we can change,
Yeah, yeah,
and
that's it.
reminding ourselves that, you know, um, our, I guess our change will make other people uncomfortable. And that's because a lot of times they know how to manipulate us.
Mhm,
And when people don't know
mhm,
how to manipulate us, it makes them very uncomfortable.
mhm.
Like they
Right.
didn't know how to get away. Like when my dad was an alcoholic. And when he got sober, and it wasn't by choice, he ran into a road construction truck at 80 miles an hour, passed out drunk. In the
Oh,
truck, it was parked. It was like on the side of the road, they're filling in potholes. So I was like hitting a brick wall.
yeah.
So he didn't have the choice, but the dad he was and the dad he became was completely two different people. And I'm sure I was the same for my children when I got sober. And if I want to be really honest, I was very angry because I didn't know how to manipulate him anymore. Like
Mhm.
if I really wanted something, I would like make his drink stronger that day
Oh,
and
wow.
make him go faster. Do you know, because I knew as soon as he had the liquor in him, I could get away with anything.
Right.
And when I didn't have that tool in my tool belt, but it boils down to I didn't know how to manipulate him,
Yeah, yeah, yep,
you know? And so when it's to be expected that people will challenge you as you change, and you just have to stay strong in your belief that you deserve better, and
right.
you'll get it. Okay, I wasn't looking for healing. I was looking for something heavier than my pain, something that might make it bearable by comparison. Please tell me what you meant by that. That you were looking for something heavier than your pain.
Yeah, I so that was referring to when I was in grief after Mike died, just not being able to function, not being able to live. I couldn't go to work without being in complete tears. I'd have to go home. So I came home from work one day and just on a whim decided to just go drive and grab my keys and my phone charger and a pillow, and that was it. I didn't bring any clothes. I didn't bring my toothbrush. Maybe I did bring my toothbrush. I think I did bring, I don't know. I don't know. Whatever. I didn't pack much. I packed a pillow and a phone charger and my phone. And I just started driving and I just it was a last minute decision to seek something other than my grief. And I needed something bigger than my grief to make it feel like I wasn't gonna be consumed by it. So, just started driving, ended up in Georgia, and I did find something bigger than my grief. I found a woman who was homeless who had a bigger story than mine, and just sitting there and talking to her made me realize that I still had a choice. I could still live in my grief, which is what she was doing. She chose to be homeless, and I knew that was the direction my life was going if I didn't stop it. Like, I could easily have just been lost in whatever. But so I chose to come home, and I chose to kind of face it. And in the story, there's a lot in there too of driving through the mountains and kind of getting a revelation of sorts. And yeah, it was that was a rough time too.
Yeah, a really powerful chapter, and I could relate to it with something that I'm going through. When you're talking about that and in that chapter, and you met this homeless woman, um, again, I think that goes back to, first of all, accountability, because she made the choice to stay in the fire, and
Mhm.
you were making the choice at that time, I'm gonna walk free from this fire. It's such a hard decision, but I think to go a little bit deeper than that, which I'm famous for doing, is taking it down to the core, is that you were looking for somebody to see your pain. And in order for you to feel seen, it was like you were looking for somebody that had it worse almost,
Mhm.
right? And often in my grief of losing my daughter, I go through something similar. And that's why this spoke to me so much. And as we said earlier, you can't see mental pain. And even though I'm a talker, Lord knows I'm a talker, and
And you're
I'm
good
the
at it.
one that, thank you. And I'm the one that likes to have deep talks. Coach's corner, my husband calls them. And he had to learn, being married to a coach, that he had to get comfortable with having deep conversations because I am not a surface level girl. You know that. The few times that we've gotten together, we never talk about our day, right? It
Right.
always goes deep. Um, and that's the risk you take being my friend, is
That's
going
okay.
deep. But
I'll take it.
I came to the realization, and I love you for this, and I appreciate you for giving me this clarity, is that recently, and this often happens to me in the fall and in the winter months when my life tends to get a little bit slower, that I go through this process. And so I acknowledge it, and I know it's coming, so I try to prepare for it. But I noticed lately I've been having these um dark thoughts, not suicidal thoughts, but like driving, I'll go through an intersection and I clench because I feel like I'm going to get in an accident. Like these random uninvited thoughts start happening. And I started watching the new series Doc, and it's like a Grey's Anatomy. And then I had this really, this is going to sound crazy, these thoughts of, like, there was a lady laying in the hospital bed and she was getting all this support and people showing their love. And um, a part of me was kind of like, does that need to happen to me? Like, do I
Mhm.
need to get really sick for people to see my pain,
Mm,
right?
yeah.
Well, right away I knew, because of my mental health and where it's at in my growth and my coaching, that that's absurd. But people without that growth, before their growth, without the training, stay in that thought, right?
Right.
And what I realized was that I'm having a hard time, I think, verbalizing the depth of pain that comes with such an excruciating loss. So we find things that are darker, but that's how we can slip away. Like you said, you were at the point of like, do I even want to live anymore? Like you did, but you wanted to stop living the life that was so painful. It's
Right.
not that you wanted to die.
Right.
It's not that I want to be laying in a hospital bed sick and on my deathbed. I don't.
Right.
I just need somebody to understand the depths of pain,
Right.
right? So I wanted to get that message across, is that when you're searching for that kind of stuff, again, your answers are not necessarily um, going to come from somebody else. It's going to come from you. But if you self reflect enough, and if you're honest with yourself enough, and you can take accountability, that's where your true answers are going to come. So when you saw this lady, you were able to take that accountability and go, oh, yeah, we're back to this game. I have to make a choice.
Mhm.
That's
Right.
where it all starts.
Yep.
Every time you needed to make a big change in your life to get a better life, it started with that choice.
Right.
So
Yep.
so thank you for that. Thank you for, I haven't even told my husband that I've been going through this for the last couple of weeks. And he is my safe space,
Yeah.
but I
Yeah.
was trying to figure it out because that's not who I am. I
Right.
very rarely go, I can't even answer it. Like, why are these thoughts all of a sudden coming to me until I read that? And
Aw.
I'm like, that's what I'm doing.
Yeah.
I'm thinking I have to have something more painful to justify the pain that I'm in,
To be
right?
seen, like you said. Yeah.
Yeah, to feel seen.
Yeah.
Um,
Crazy.
so thank and he so happens to be out hunting. He's up north, so I haven't even had a chance to be like, aha, like I've been going through this, but it's all better now because I read Rhonda's book and I completely figured it out. It was like maddening to me why I was going through this, but this gave me the answer, and it wasn't your answer, but it made me reflect,
Right.
and so
Well, that's
thank you for
good.
that.
Good.
Yeah. Um, Here's another one. That's the part no one talks about. Not the courage it takes to succeed, but the courage it takes just to show up. Every
Mhm.
time I walked into a room, awkward and unsure, I was choosing growth over fear. I was choosing connection over comfort. I was choosing to live. And for context, that was after you came back from this little journey to the mountains.
Mhm.
Um, every time you tried something new, like your ball or your dance,
Mhm.
that it was
Jeeping.
scary. What's that?
Jeeping.
Jeeping? Yeah.
You go,
Yes.
like, meet a bunch of random women that are talking about their Jeeps, and yeah, it's
Yeah.
all uncomfortable.
Right. So, how did you have the courage? Because you said no one talks about it, so let's talk about it. It's not about succeeding, but it's how do you have the courage to even walk into unfamiliar territory? Because that's what you have to do to grow. If you want change, there has to be change, which means it's like a little girl going to a new school.
Yep. Yep. It's
How did
uncomfortable and there's no easy way around it. If you
you?
want change, you have to make a choice to be uncomfortable. And that's a choice that I made every single time. Even if you go in one time, I mean, that's the most awkward because you don't even know what you're getting into. But then even after that, you don't have any friends yet. You might have somebody that's nice to you, but if you want change, you have to be uncomfortable, and it's a choice again. It's a choice to live like you have been in whether it's misery or uncomfortableness or loneliness to seek something different. And it just boils down to a choice, and it's not easy. I like the sign behind you. I'm just reading it. Comfort zones are for
For
wimps.
wimps.
It's not comfortable at all. It's
Mhm.
whether or not you make friends or not, it's it's something you have to do if you want change and if you wanna see im I don't wanna say improvement, but if you wanna see a level of, um, learning or growing, if you wanna see growing in your life, you have to be uncomfortable.
Yeah. Well, I follow a guy. His whole theory in life is to fail forward.
Okay.
And yeah, and I
Great.
love it. I love that
Mhm,
concept. And so let's say you take the risk to go dancing. So you line dance and you get there and it's a complete failure. You can look at that and go, oh my God, and I'll never do that again. Or you can look at that as a lesson, right?
mhm.
And maybe you didn't get the steps right the first time, but what did you learn from it so you can grow from it? And knowing and other things you can do is go, okay, everybody in this room was not born knowing every line dance. So they've all been in the position I'm putting myself in right now.
Mhm.
Have that conversation with them. Like, I'm not even here to dance tonight. I'm here to figure out how you got through this room the first time.
So
Right?
you're touching on connection, and
Yeah.
connection, I feel like, is such a missing component in our lives because we're all so self-absorbed with Facebook, social media, they're all individual things. And I think we all long for connection and realizing where people come from. So even if it's somebody like I'm friends with people from all different walks of life now, and I love it. I mean, people that were never a part of my journey before are, and I just love talking to them, even like sitting and talking to the homeless woman. It was eye-opening, like, what brought you here? Like, just being able to have an honest, heartfelt conversation with somebody that's different than you, I think is the risk, and there's such reward in that. So,
Hmm.
yeah, you're touching on connection, which is, I think, a big part for me now is, like, just trying to connect with as many people as I can because we all have such different journeys. And I think in connecting with people, we realize that we're not alone.
Yeah, and I can tell you this, that I think that we naturally try to be perfect. We try not to fail. We try to do all of those things and we miss those opportunities for the connection and for the growth. And I can tell you right now that when you walked into that dance place and if you went on to the dance floor to pretend like you knew what you were doing and just did it, would give you a completely different result than it is if you walked in and said, "Hey, you're really great at this. Like, this is something I want to try and learn. I'm afraid I'm going to be miserable at it. What tips can you give me?" That
Yes.
person is going to cling to you because they relate because they've been there and go,
Yeah.
"Girl, let
Yeah.
me show you." So, but we hesitate to do that because it sounds like we're admitting we're not good enough or that we are a failure if we have to ask for help. But that's just a perfect example of how it can give you the complete opposite, that accountability and just being raw and honest
Yeah.
gives you a whole different outcome, a much better outcome when you can be truly just who you are. And that can, especially when you're vulnerable, right?
That's pretty to be vulnerable. To be vulnerable is really hard, but that's how people connect with you because everybody is broken. Everybody is broken. And we're all broken in
Yeah.
different ways, and sometimes we can share, a victory for something that might touch someone else's heart, and sometimes, it doesn't resonate, but maybe they have something that will touch our heart, but you can't do that if you're not vulnerable. So, that's I think a big part of this book for me was just that. Was like being vulnerable.
Yeah. Well, I think this kind of goes into what we're talking about. So you said we all have choices to make every single day. Some will pull us closer to healing, and some will drag us deeper into hiding. But even in our worst moments, we're never beyond the reach of grace. That night didn't define me. My next choice did. And the one after that, and the one after that. Because even when we get it all wrong, we still get to choose again. And that literally goes to what we were just kind of talking about, that fail forward, that
Mhm,
we are all going to make mistakes.
mhm,
But with every mistake becomes another choice.
right,
And those choices will either get us closer to that life that we're craving, or it's going to get us further apart.
right.
And we're all like, just know this, you're all going to make bad choices. We all do,
We all do.
right?
Yeah, yeah,
We all make bad choices. While they might not be bad if you learn from them,
right, right.
you know? All right. So you said it made me realize that healing can echo. When one person speaks their truth, more than one person can heal. What does that say to you?
Again, I think it goes back to vulnerability, me sharing the story, like, obviously not knowing that it was gonna reach some of the people that it reached, and this is just the very early stages of it too, so I'm kinda blown away from it, but the fact that other people are saying, "This has helped me," has in return helped me. If you speak your fears or your anxiety or your trauma, it brings light into darkness and it will help someone else. It will. There's no way it can't.
Well, I love that. And I love that you said it because, again, that's exactly what I'm trying to do with this program, right? That's exactly what this podcast is all about, is that telling our stories, not only are we hope that it will heal our listeners or people around us, but every time we do, we continue to heal. And healing is never done
Right.
because life's us to death.
Yeah.
And there's always the next hardship, the next heartbreak. Um, if we know how to heal
Right.
and we don't let one tragic thing on top of the other one, on top of the other one, and then try to heal when you've got this much stacked on. You know what I mean? It's easier.
Right.
So I really hope that people reading your book or people that watch this podcast both realize how powerful their story is. This is something you mentioned in the book. Like, you can't measure trauma
Mm-mm.
with other people.
Mm-mm.
You can't compare.
No.
And I don't want to give away what you said, because what you said in here was so powerful. And ironically, it speaks to the very thing of you losing your person and me losing a child,
Yeah.
and how that got compared.
Mhm. Mhm.
And I can tell you, um, s- so to speak, you were told that nothing compares to losing a child. And coming from someone that has lost a child, that I can absolutely debunk that, because no matter what trauma, I believe this anyways, not everybody is going to agree with me, especially maybe other mothers that have lost a child, but no matter what your trauma is or what you're going through, it is the worst trauma for you,
Right.
which puts you in the same exact headspace as mine.
Yep. Right.
It's all new territory, and
Yep.
it is so heavy, and it is so dark. And grief, no matter, grief is not just when you lose someone in your life to death. You grieve relationships
Yeah.
that didn't work out. You grieve the life that you thought you were going to have.
Right.
You grieve, if you're diagnosed with a life altering disease, you grieve who you used to be,
Yep.
right?
Yep.
And all of that cannot be compared with any other trauma, because we all see things through our own lenses.
Yep.
And every life is beautifully unique, which means their trauma is just as unique,
Right.
and so will their healing process.
Yep. Yep.
But I feel that if this book doesn't prove it to everybody, that no matter what trauma I've been, I've never been hit with your trauma, right? But yet I could relate to this book so much, because healing and the steps to healing are the same no matter what trauma is for
Right.
you, right?
Right.
I think that's so important. And I appreciate you being, like, I know it's difficult to ask you to go back, um to that darkness, but I feel that you writing this book has, I don't think you even understand the amount of healing that this is going
Uh-huh.
to give to you yet, because it is so new. But every time someone comes to you and says, you wrote that book for me,
Mm.
or
That's when we cry.
you, this part of this book. Yeah. But just like for me, I've been dealing with this thing in my head that I couldn't put a name on. Um, Reading this book made me understand to the core of where that was coming from. Now I can do something about it,
Wow.
right?
Wow.
Um, every time you hear those, it's going to bring more healing and purpose to you. And I feel the life that you keep saying I was made for more is right around the corner for you. And you had to go through the uncomfortableness that Kathy, your editor, your friend,
Mhm. Mhm.
had you go through. And I thank God for her for giving you that safe space, because you would not have been able to do
Mhm.
this
No.
if you didn't feel safe with her.
Yeah.
If I don't even know her, but I can tell you right now, she genuinely cared about you and not the book, because she wasn't getting you to write this to add pages. She was getting you to reach that core, to get you down to levels you've never been before. And you have to heal it to feel it. So thank you, Kathy. Thank you, Rhonda. I
Thank you.
want to leave on this question, and it's going to be a deep question.
Oh, no.
Okay.
I'm scared.
Why is it everyone is scared of me? They always say I'm scared to talk to her. No, I I could be completely off base here, but I think I think the biggest gift that's going to come out of this book is the gift you gave your mother, because she knows, well, the abuse that she went through and the life that she lived. She had no way of knowing or support to be able to make different choices.
Right,
She couldn't even talk about it back then.
right,
Okay. So breaking cycles back then was unheard of.
right.
That's just starting to become a possibility
Yeah.
through counseling, through therapy. And looking back now and reading your book, but even before your book was born, she knew in her heart of hearts the abuse that you lived in that home. And she, I bet, has no idea how to verbalize to you the pain that that comes with. She doesn't know how to heal from that pain. But before she goes, you gave her the gift of her daughter not just surviving, but thriving through that. What a gift you're giving to her. Even as one of your abusers, if that doesn't speak incredible power in healing, and what a journey, and what an incredible human being you are, to give someone that gift. And for your daughters, your children, and your siblings, that you're living a life that shows it's possible, and that healing is possible, and life after trauma is possible. And your children are young, and they're adult children, but they're having children. And life will start lifing them, right? As we
Right.
get older, we start losing our parents
Yeah.
and dear friends that we've been things. And you are still teaching them all of these incredible lessons on how powerful healing can be, and how choosing yourself first will make life better for not only you, but everybody around you, you know? So I want you to think of that. I want you to understand truly the gift that you're given. Um, Not just yourself for writing this book, but definitely with your mother
Thank you.
and your siblings, you know?
Yeah, I did have a really good conversation with my mom where I think she finally realized, because I think when you live through trauma, you live through abuse, you justify it. There's no other way to get through it without justifying it. So there was, like I said, we never talked about it before I moved out, moved on and had kids and stuff, and but writing this book, I had conversations with her, and she did finally ask for forgiveness, and it just made me cry. She said it the way of, "I just hope," and she was crying, and she said, "I just hope someday you'll forgive me," and I was able to hug her and say, "Mom, I already forgave you." So, that was pretty cool.
That is amazing. That's, again, it's such a gift to yourself for that forgiveness.
Yeah,
But
yeah, yeah,
you broke chains that had has had her shackled before you were even born.
right.
You broke those chains for her. And again, it's just incredibly selfless
Oh, I don't know about
to do that. No, it is. You have to, ironically, I just thought of this. It's like we have to make a lot of perceived selfish decisions to give our most selfless to anybody else.
True.
Mm,
See, you're so
right?
smart. You're so smart.
Mm, that just came to my mind, but
That's
that's just how I'm feeling
that's very
at the
wise.
moment.
Yeah, that's very true. Yep.
Yeah. Well, Rhonda, again, thank you. I know we've extended this, but I knew it. I knew as soon as I said we're doing this, it was going to be longer than most of my podcasts, but definitely worth every second of it.
Thank
And
you.
so, Breaking Free, I was made for more. Where can we find this book, Rhonda?
On Amazon. So if you
Okay,
search Breaking Free, I was made for more, or search my name, it'll be on there. And I think you'll have the link up there, right? You'll put the link up.
yes, I'm going to put the link in the description. So I'll also be posting it on my different social medias. So thank you so much for being so raw, so real, and really sharing the story of healing and how powerful um, telling your story really can be, because that again is the basis of why I do what I do. And again, going back to like my daughter not being able to heal and that leading to her death, to where when you can heal and you have the courage to do that, it can give you a much, much better result. And
Right.
so let's continue to work together to break the stigma. Talking about us or about our trauma makes us small or weak, or makes us a victim. We're not victims. We're warriors. We're
Mhm,
survivors.
mhm, mhm.
And when all those people come at you for wanting to tell your story, I always say make sure you can do it safely, first of all. But second of all, don't make yourself small to make somebody else more comfortable. It is your birthright, as Rhonda told us in the book. It is your birthright to be able to heal and to be able to share your story.
That's what we
So
were
thank
made
you,
for.
Rhonda.
We were made
Does
for
this?
more than, yeah, that. And thank
Yes.
you, Jamie, for having me. Thank you for what you do. It's incredible. I just think your purpose and your mission is, yeah, you're gonna change lives too. So thank you.
Thank you. Together, we're going to change lots of lives, right? It takes a whole village.
It's the
So
tribe.
I appreciate you. So Thrive Tribe. I really hope that you had so many takeaways um, from this episode. I really encourage you to get out there and get this book, because again, it doesn't matter what you've gone through, whether it be trauma or not. You're just looking for uh, some guidance how to make your own life better, how to level up your life. Maybe you're going through a divorce, leaving an abusive relationship. This book will absolutely speak to you. I will have the link to purchase it in the description. And if you feel that this episode has spoken to you, please share it, like, and subscribe, because we are just getting started with this podcast and have so much more in store for you guys. Talk to you later. Bye bye.
Bye.